to our sixth and final meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Transportation for the 2023 interim session. Before we call roll, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence your phones, unless, of course, we all want to listen in on the conversation. Then you can put it in on speakerphone. Also, remind everyone that the meeting materials for today's meeting are currently available on the Transportation Committee page on the LRC website. You may notice it's a little bit warm in here. We have got the air conditioner turned on, so hopefully within about a half an hour or so, we'll begin to get down to some sense of more normal feeling on the temperature. So with that, I will ask Madam Secretary to call the roll, please.
Senator Berg, Senator Carpenter, Senator Mills, Senator Smith, Senator Storm,
Here.
Senator Turner,
Here.
Senator Wheeler,
Here.
Senator Williams, Senator Wilson, Senator Yates,
Present.
Representative Branscombe, Representative Bridges, Representative Dixon,
Here.
Representative Elliott, Representative Fleming,
Present.
Representative Hale,
Here.
Representative Heverin,
Here.
Representative Herron,
Here.
Representative Hodgson,
Here.
Representative Huff,
Here.
Representative Imes,
Here.
Representative Lewis, Representative McCool,
Here.
Representative Neighbors, Representative Palumbo, Representative Roberts,
Here.
Representative Smith,
Here.
Representative Tackett Lafferty, Representative Thomas,
Present.
Representative Upchurch,
Present.
Representative Wesley, Representative Williams,
Here.
Co-Chair Higdon,
Here.
Chairman Blanton.
Here. We do have a quorum. And before we begin, I would like to defer to Representative McCool for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As probably most of you know, or if not, we had a state of emergency called in Martin County this morning for an accident that has happened yesterday afternoon. We have rescue people on site, and everybody, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence if I can, Mr. Chair, for those that are involved and for the rescue operation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative McCool. Next up, we will need a motion and second for the approval of the October meeting minutes. Motion by Representative Hale and second by Senator Storm. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Before we get started in the agenda today, you may have seen the earlier agenda that came out. We did have autonomous vehicles on the agenda today. We have removed that due to the fact that the individuals within the autonomous vehicle industry were unable to be here today with us. We do suspect that this legislation will continue and will be brought up in the upcoming session. But we do want to point out that there was a situation in October, I believe it was, involving an accident with a pedestrian that the AV company Cruise has decided to pause their driverless operations. And also the Department of Motor Vehicle has withdrawn their permit for them to operate within the city of San Francisco due to this. That's why that meeting these concerns of seeing how these autonomous vehicles are actually going to operate and the safety of them and some other issues. And I know there's multiple people in support and against. That's why that I have being prepared a concurrent resolution right now to establish an autonomous vehicle task force to examine that we take a look at all these issues. We sit down, we come together with a resolution that's going to work for Kentucky as this is not something that's immediate. We're still a few years out. And let's understand something. It's not a matter of if we're going to have these. It's a matter of when we're going to get them. So let's make sure we get them right is what I'm asking. So we will not be discussing the autonomous vehicles at this meeting. If the order of suspension is available upon request, also is several articles about the accident. So with that being said, we will move forward on the agenda, and the first thing on the agenda is the update of the off-highway vehicle pilot program. I believe Senator Wheeler, Representative Fugit, and any of the folks you may have with you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Jerry Adkins from the Hillbilly Trail System in Pike County, someone who I know you know very well. And as the committee may be well aware, a few years back, Representative Fugit and I worked on, I think, what started out as Senate Bill 75. I can't remember actually what bill that it ended up going through on, but the idea was to provide a framework for UTVs and ATVs to be operated on certain designated state roads in order to advance the development of a recreational trail system throughout eastern Kentucky. After that bill was passed, it was passed as a pilot project. That pilot project is currently set to expire, I believe, on June 30th of 2024. After the bill was passed, I think the Transportation Cabinet went through a period of establishing regulations to implement the legislation. Those have been promulgated, but I believe there was somewhat of a delay on those. So, but they are now in place, and I guess we're really just now getting to the point to be able to adopt roads into the state roads and certain county roads into the ATV trail system. And so I guess what Representative Fugit and I would like to do is to extend that pilot program for another 36 months. I brought Jerry Adkins down here with us, who, as I said, is the executive director of the Hillbilly Trail System in Pike County. It's a recently opened 3,000-acre ATV park that is looking to expand beyond its current confines. I'll let him give you a little bit of details about that and what their plans are of utilizing our legislation and the pilot program to advance what they're doing.
Thank you, Senator Wheeler. Actually, we did get the Pike County Fiscal Court's Hillbilly Trail System a ribbon-cutting ceremony and officially opened on September 30th. Our permit sales have been well. We sold permits 3 weeks in the month of September. I'll have a full count for the October sales, but in calling on some of the retailers, we have 15 local retailers that are selling their permits for us. We also sell out-of-state permits online. We are predominantly selling 90-some% of our permits by local retailers who thank me for giving them the opportunity because it's increasing their business. People coming in to purchase permits are making purchases there at the place of business. On state highways, we have a north trailhead on our Phase 1 that we just opened and a south trailhead. Well, our Phase 1 trailhead is off US 23, a 4-lane highway, and we know that that's not part of the off-highway vehicle program. On our south trailhead, State Route 197, we'll soon be approaching to ask the Transportation Department to consider having the off-highway vehicles on State Route 197, which allow us to access Elkhorn City, Kentucky, a few miles down Route 197, which is a trail-friendly town. We look forward to help influx the venture tourism dollars into Elkhorn City. Elkhorn City, like a lot of small places there in eastern Kentucky with the downturn in the coal industry, sorely needs this money. It will help them. And when I talk to my friends from the neighboring trail system, I visited twice with the executive director from Hatfield McCoy Trail System, Mr. Jeffrey Lusk, who I've heard speak here to committee before. Also, the Spearhead Trail System in Virginia. They look forward to their trail systems tying into theirs. As we look into our second phase of our trail system, which will be over on the southern end of the county, Phase 1 is in the northern end of the county. It will be in the Blackberry communities, McCarr, and Buskirk communities. When you're in Buskirk, Kentucky, the only thing between Buskirk and the city of Matewan, West Virginia, where the Hatfield-McCoy has their Dale Lance trailhead, is the Tug River. The bridge spanning over that river is referred to as the Matewan Bridge. Well, when we do open our Phase 2, people, ATV enthusiasts, will be able to ride off the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System, across the Matewan Bridge, into Buskirk, Kentucky, and enter our trail system. And the executive director, Mr. Lusk, over at West Virginia, says that people will most definitely buy permits from both trail systems. They will be excited they can ride from one trail system across the state line into a second trail system. We will need Highway 1056 at that time. We'll need at least 5 miles of it to access Airbnbs. We have people that are already putting some in and have some overflow from Hatfield-McCoy already coming over there and staying with them. Also, a lot of people think the Hatfield-McCoy feud all was in West Virginia, but a lot to do with the Hatfield-McCoy Trail name. But Randolph McCoy, the patriarch of the McCoys, lived there in Kentucky. If you travel 5 miles from the West Virginia border up Route 1056, there's 5 historical markers from the Hatfield-McCoy feud that can be visited right beside the highway. We can use that as selling features to sell permits to out-of-state riders. Route 319, directly off of Route 1056, you can go to Randolph McCoy's home place where the Hatfields burnt down on New Year's night in the late 1870s. The water well, the hand-drawn water well, still exists there. It's a historical marker. The current landowner, Bob Scott, allows tourists and visitors to draw water from that well, so they can go home and say that they drew water from Randolph McCoy's well. So with the Airbnbs, the campgrounds that are now already going in, since we opened on Route 197 that I spoke of previously, we have 2 campgrounds under construction. And the one thing that I hear the most from out-of-state people who call my office more than once a day, they're also on their website and on their Facebook page, is they say, when you have highways that connect to your trail system from Airbnbs and campgrounds, like they do in Matewan, West Virginia, Del Barton, West Virginia, Gilbert, West Virginia. All these cities have state highways, 2-lane state highways that are approved where people can leave the trail and go into these cities, get gasoline, get food, get supplies. They pump money into those cities. Well, what the out-of-state riders are telling me who have ridden the Hatfield-McCoy Trail for years, when you get your trail system to where we can do that, we'll come down and see you. 95% of our first 1,000+ permit sales is local in Pike County and in the state, 12 to 15% out of state. So we need these state highways to make our trail system successful, to keep it successful.
Representative Chris Fugit. I represent 84th District, Perry, Breathitt, and Owsley County. And most of you know that we've been working on the trail system since 2019 with House Bill 249. And it really is more than just tourism in East Kentucky. The First Appalachian Trail System, we've got 18 counties that are all working together to make this trail system happen. But it's more of an economic development thing than it is tourism, because it gives people the ability to start their own cabins and campgrounds, and we've seen a lot of that in counties all across East Kentucky already with private landowners starting campgrounds. Knott County, particular, their campground in 2019 brought in $20,000, and this year it'll bring right at $600,000 with riders from everywhere. And that's good for people to come and ride the trails, but it's better when they can get down into the cities, the small cities and towns, and to be able to eat local, buy local, and get gas and all that stuff. In Hatfield-McCoy last year, they had a $38 million economic impact from the trails. Spearhead Trail System last year had $19 million economic impact. We just signed an agreement with the landowner and 46,000 acres that will join Floyd, Martin, Johnson, and Lawrence counties together, and hopefully we'll be selling permits on that next July or August, and that also ties in to the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System. To make all that happen, they'll be, we have to be able to access the rural secondary roads of the state. We will not a blanket. I wish we could do a blanket for all the rural secondary roads. That'd be cool, but we can't. I understand that. But to get from town back to the trails, from the trails back into town, or to Airbnbs or Buckhorn Lake State Park, there's an opportunity there to be able to do maybe an ATV destination at that state park. But in order to do that, we would have to have about 4 miles of Kentucky 1833 to leave the park property to get down to Eagle Landing Campground, and then hit the trails that will take you from Buckhorn into Lee County, Owsley County, Clay County, Breathitt County. It'll take you to all those counties. And so this pilot program is a good program, and I believe that extending it would be beneficial to the trail authorities and to the trail systems that's going to open in East Kentucky. And it's going to bring a lot of people into every county, not just one, but all of East Kentucky will benefit from being able to use these rural secondary roads. And so I appreciate the General Assembly's support of the Trail Authority, but we also need your support on naming some rural secondary roads as part of the trail system, so we can connect people to towns and towns to different towns and all that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to speak.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your all's presentation about the trails themselves. And I'm assuming we're going to hear from Jason in a little bit. Maybe he'll have the answer to this question. But do we have any data about, since this pilot project started, not permits to use the trail or the size of the trail, but about actual ATVs that are using the roadways to move and access from one point to the trail? Do we have any data of how much that is being used, or how is that?
Mr. Chairman, I think at this point in time, unfortunately, it got off to a little bit of a slower start than we hoped with the regulations. I'm not certain that there are any roads currently that have been adopted. So, I think that at this point, we're still moving in that direction. So, therefore, to really get the data that we're talking about would require an extension of the pilot project.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add to that, Mr. Chairman, we at the First Frontier, we're not selling permits yet at all. So we don't have any data, but I can tell you, if you ride any in East Kentucky, not that I would get on the highway without not being supposed to or whatever, but anyway, if you get out there and you're riding, you'll see people leaving one trail, driving up the highway and getting on another trail. So that's not official data, but I promise you that it's happening.
Mr. Speaker, if I may add to that, I'm not sure that the KMRRA or the Air Trail System have yet come to the point that we were ready to ask for state highway. I'm glad that the OHV pilot program is put into effect, but we do need the extension because we're just now getting to the point that we're ready to utilize it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have Jason Sawala here with the Deputy State Highway Engineer from the Transportation Cabinet to speak on this matter as well. And we do have a few questions, but we'll let Jason go ahead and do his presentation, and then we'll get to the questions.
All right, good afternoon. Jason Sawal, Deputy State Highway Engineer for KYTC. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the Interim Joint Committee today about the status of the local government pilot program for off-highway vehicles. As mentioned in the previous presentations, KRS 189.281 authorized this pilot program and required the Cabinet to promulgate administrative regulations related to the local government pilot program for off-highway vehicles. That administrative regulation has been promulgated. That's 603 KAR Chapter 5, colon 350, which is entitled Off-Highway Vehicle Safety and Routes, which establishes criteria for OHV ordinances, petitions, and the rescinding thereof, OHV enforcement requirements and OHV safety plan requirements, and establishes the OHV safety requirements and the safety equipment verification protocol as laid out in the reference statute. As previously mentioned, that's regulation is set to expire on July 1st of 2024, excuse me, pursuant to KRS 189-281. So as we were going through the regulatory process, this regulation was filed in July of 2022 over here at LRC, made its way through the process both during the interim and the regular session, and was effective on March 1st of 2023. As was mentioned by the previous presenters, there's obviously a lot of different folks that have interest out there, and we've fielded some questions from various different groups that are interested in the process, but we have not to date received any official petitions under that administrative regulation or under that statute for that. But as folks are learning about the program and setting up the trails, as was mentioned by the previous presenters, we're certainly ready to have those discussions and help people move throughout the process. And so, our goal obviously is, as we do that, is to help ensure that any of those off-highway vehicles that are used on the highways are able to do so safely. As you mentioned, Chairman Blanton, about crash data and things of that nature. And so, with that, I'll be happy to take any questions or defer to the previous presenters.
Thank you, Jason. We do have a couple questions. First up is Chairman Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess Senator Wheeler needs to come back to the. You can stay there, I guess, but
We'll shuffle.
I want. Thank you, Senator Wheeler. When we worked on this bill, and it was a good accomplishment to pass this. One of the things we talked about at the time we worked on it is what were other states doing, Tennessee and West Virginia particularly, because they border us and they were really into it. They got a head start on us. Have you done any research or noticed any additional things that they're doing in West Virginia and Tennessee that we might ought to be looking at?
Mr. Chairman, I think Representative Fugit probably has a little bit of a. Jerry, you want to come back up too?
Yeah.
Senator, I'm not up to date perfectly till today what they're doing in West Virginia, but we have really just duplicated what they've done in West Virginia so far. And so I would think that in the future that we would need to just continue when it comes time to actually adopt roads in and how they do it. We just need to duplicate again what they've done in West Virginia, because it's worked for them for I think they've been selling permits now 15 years, but they've been in existence for over 20 years. And so I think if we just follow their path that they've taken would benefit Kentucky the same as it has them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know one thing, Chairman Higdon, that we had talked about, I think, before was licensing versus decals, and I think we spoke to the cabinet that some of the difficulties that might come with putting ATVs into the CAVIS system, that decals was the more appropriate way to go, and I think Jerry just confirmed that is the route that West Virginia is going. It's also a somewhat better revenue model. For example, like in Pike County, if you're a local member, you can buy the permit for your local with the proof of residency, your local ATV for $10, whereas if you're out of state, they sell the decals at $50 a head. So, there are possibilities and ways of monetizing this through tourism, I think, that they've adopted in West Virginia. I think Representative Fugit's exactly right, that they've kind of presented us with a model there that is worth continuing to follow over here.
Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your report today, and I do support the initiative, and I have in the past. But I do have some concern And I'm not sure if you could address it or transportation, and that is with safety when they're on the highway. You know, some of these have put up some with the lights and or noise. Sometimes at night when you see those, they got lights everywhere, and they can't dim those lights, so that's safety for the passengers going the opposite direction. And also when you're going into residential areas, the noise late at night may not be very well taken care of. So have any consideration, thought to those two and or other issues?
Yes, and I can't speak for Pike County, but as far as our trail system, there'll be a curfew on our trails as far as the time of night. and then vehicles getting on the roadway will have to have insurance. Period. You know, to get on the highway, you'll have to have insurance. I've got a Razor. I've got insurance on it already. But vehicles will have to be equipped with whatever the regs are, whatever we come out with. They'll have to be equipped with being able to dim the lights, and most of them that I know of can dim headlights. Maybe they just choose not to. But we'll have to police that curfew and make sure people are not in areas they're not supposed to be.
And thank you. It's more than just the headlights. Headlights is not really the issue.
Right,
they
the
have
bar
those
lights
across the
right, the bar lights.
Bar lights. Those
Yes,
are
sir.
very, very bright, and they have a lot of them. So
Yes, sir.
just some kind of regulation, restrictions, or whatever, so it doesn't become an issue.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wheeler, this may be something you could answer for me. Is regulations, the makeup of the Razor, is it federal oversight, or is there anything the state can particularly get involved with as far as safety issues? The reason I'm asking, I had a constituent reach out to me last year that had one of these vehicles, and the parent got off of it. It was still running. A 2-year-old or 3-year-old jumped on it and killed herself, and it was a tragic accident. And all she was asking was, is there any way, we have these Sea-Doos or whatever, watercraft that's got a plug. She talked about maybe a seat, because lawnmowers have a seat that when you get up, it shuts itself off. Is that federal, or is that something the state can look into?
I would. It's a good question, and that sounds like a horrible tragedy, Representative Odell Smith. I can totally understand why that would be of concern. I don't know that we would be able to I guess, what do they call it, a dead man switch or something like that. I think that, whether that is something we could authorize via state regulation, I'm not certain on that. I mean, these things are produced and sold in interstate commerce. I know we have mandated certain safety equipment for the ATVs for robo use, such as, headlights if they're using them at night, and blinkers and those types of things. But, that would probably be a bit more than what I think we would anticipate requiring in this legislation. But at least that would be from my perspective. I don't know if Representative Fugit would have anything to add on that.
I believe that would be a federal issue because of the licensing through the federal.
And follow up, Mr. Chairman, the reason I was asking, I know just like the concerns he had about the night driving, things like, you're going to have a lot of things come up because they're getting more and more popular. It's mostly in our area in eastern Kentucky, and I'm all for it. I think it's one of our greatest tourism expansions for the future. I think we need to really pay attention to how we do some, not over-regulate, but do some regulations so they'll be friendly, and also we'll have a lot, we hear of them every summer, someone getting killed on one of these types of vehicles. So that was the only reason I was bringing it up. I think we need to address it, and if it is federal, we could maybe do a resolution, send it to, after we've adopted what we're going to do, to our congressional delegation, let them know what we'd like to see done federally, just for improvements. Representative Fugit, I think we can kind of fine tune it to where it's mostly for safety purposes anyway.
I think we can all agree that safety is one of the reasons why we're actually proposing this legislation, is kind of to bring order to some chaos.
There's a lot of safety already in the regulation. KRS 189.281, that operator has to be 18 years of age, have to have operator's license, you have to have insurance. So a lot of safety regulations already in place. Of course, as an industry, we would always look to improve upon them.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, Floyd County being one of the county and Pike being a part of these two systems, we're looking forward to getting these trails started. And I've been working, I also have a state park in my district, and I've been working to talk to them about a trolley or transit system to kind of transport guests to on-site and off-site activities. One of those off-site activities that I had proposed were trailheads or something once we get this system started, to be able to transport them from the state park to maybe a trailhead or the registration site. Do you all see anything as far as that we need to consider to make sure that that will work between the trail system and the park system? Do we need to bring those two agencies together to see if that's something that they can work toward, or can they do that independently, or is there something we need to anticipate?
I think it would have to be discussion between the state parks and the trail authority, and we're already doing that on a couple of them, and so we just have to bring them in on your idea to the park system and then just bring them together and talk. But yes, it's a good idea.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate. Jerry, you got something?
I do have one more thing to readdress Mr. McCool's concern about the bright lights, and I think you're referring to bar lights that are on these vehicles after dark. The statute in place under number 7 says shall not operate between 1 hour after sunset and 1 hour before sunrise unless a person can demonstrate a cause for driving. So the bright lights after night should not be a concern.
Oh, well, we have one more question. Jerry, you've brought a question to somebody's mind. Senator Smith.
No, I just want to be noted as being present. So, good job.
Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is reclaimed asphalt, the potential use of. We do have some folks here from the Transportation Cabinet. John Moore, Deputy State Highway Engineer, and Tracy Nowatzik. Is that close? Try not to butcher it too bad. Assistant State Highway Engineer. Welcome, and before I have you introduce yourself, this hearing today is a result of a resolution that I filed and passed this past session. And that resolution says 3 specific things that the Transportation Cabinet is requested to do. And that is 1, study the benefits of increased use of recycled asphalt. 2, to develop a plan to increase the use of reclaimed asphalt pavement on all future road projects where appropriate, and appear before the Interim Joint Committee on Transportation during the 23 interim of the General Assembly to discuss the potential for the increased use of recycled asphalt. So that's what we're here to do today, and with that, I will turn it over to you all, and if you will please introduce yourselves.
John Moore, Deputy State Highway Engineer.
Tracy Novacek, Assistant State Highway Engineer.
And we all struggle with Tracy's name, so. And happy to be here to address the third, and hopefully within the third, discuss the first 2 topics of that resolution. So, my industry partners will get into a lot of the definitions, so I didn't prepare a lot to establish the framework, but I'll leave that to, won't steal their thunder on that. But reclaimed asphalt and aggregates, reclaimed asphalt pavement wrap it does use save money and natural resources. The Federal Highway Administration, who provides a lot of funding for Transportation Cabinet, is a strong advocate for appropriate use of recycled aggregates and construction materials. We have identified, and it's well known that numerous studies have documented that the performance of wrap mixtures can equal or exceed the use of mixtures without wrap. So it can be beneficial, as well as through participation in regional and national committees and partnerships. Our pavement professionals, of which Tracy is our top-notch one, continue to support and review national pavement research related to wrap and other topics. I do want to call out a special accolade for Tracy and the pavement group. Among the pavement professionals in the country, they are known as national leaders in that, and so we're grateful to have Tracy and her team as part of the Transportation Cabinet to help us prepare and move forward in this regard. As I mentioned, we recognize the benefits of the use of wrap, and on the flip side, we also have a financial responsibility to the public to make sure that asphalt pavements perform well and serve through the expected service life, regardless of the amount of recycled asphalt used or recycled materials. This is a notion shared nationwide. As sustainability has been used a lot, as this is a sustainable, should be a sustainable product. One aspect of sustainability is that it should meet the expected lifespan of that product. So if it removes useful life of it, then it does not meet the federal definition of sustainability. We continue to study the benefits of wrap through relationships with research entities, national partners, but also through the analysis of our own experience with asphalt pavements. We began this analysis back in 2016, and through that analysis, we observed performance-related concerns through high wrap asphalts at that time. These issues include early and accelerated cracking, which correlated to a decreased service life for high wrap pavements. Now, that's not that's where we were back in 2016. We hear the industry's request for the desire to use increased wrap. The industry and ourselves have been working since last year in a forum, a Kentucky Asphalt Industry Forum. Through that forum, we're working to improve the safety, performance, and environmental impact of Kentucky asphalt pavements. Through that work group, with our agenda includes a roadmap to develop best practices for wrap utilization. The different items on that: one is to establish our sustainability goals. Second, to understand the national framework of wrap management strategies. Understand Kentucky industry current practice and capacity. We don't want to implement something that's not readily accepted and implementable with our industry partners. Develop performance requirements. What do we define as acceptable performance for wrap pavements or high wrap pavements? Look at and determine stockpile management guidelines and requirements. What is the underlying processes that will support those performance requirements, and then incorporate those into our specifications is our next item, and then try it out on the road. Get some high wrap implementations and monitor the performance, and move forward from there. We are committed to continue to work with industry, academics, and all other partners to embrace these and other new processes. Through industry cooperation or continued industry cooperation, as well as our top-notch pavement management team, we feel like we're well positioned to responsibly implement high wrap pavements in Kentucky. So happy to entertain any questions or kick it off to our industry folks.
Just a second, Senator Wheeler, before I get to you. So I did this resolution. Don't know how many of the committee members realize, but our resurfacing budget currently, we're doing just barely over half the miles that we were doing 5-6 years ago. Now, my numbers may not be exact, but they're just ballpark numbers. I want you to think about Kentucky as a whole. Our previous budget numbers we were doing about 800 miles of resurfacing a year across the 120 counties. And we're down to around 500 plus or minus miles right now, which means that we're in a turnaround time of probably 20 plus years on resurfacing some highways. We've fallen way behind. We've got to find a way to get back on track. And I started learning about recycled asphalt as a good alternative, a cheaper method, which means we can get more miles for the same money to get us back on track. And it has a proven record from my research of being able to withstand the traffic for safety. The director mentioned even the National Transportation finds it favorable, and we should look at those things and begin to implement these things to help get us back on track. And quite frankly, I was shocked at 800 miles. I think we need to be more at the 1,500 miles per year in Kentucky resurfacing our roadways, because I think every one of us has got roadways in our district that you get called about and you go and they're full of potholes and they're damaged, and we've got to get ourselves back on. And this is one of those things. And for those that are concerned about the environment, which I hope we all are, it's also an environmental friendly way of using our asphalt as well. So with that, I just wanted to lay out for the committee why I did this resolution, why I've asked the cabinet to do this, because I think it's necessary and it's beneficial to our citizens, both in the use of our transportation system and a wise use of taxpayer dollars. With that, Senator Wheeler, you have a question.
Yeah, I was just trying to, is this what's also referred to as like millings that they kind of take up when before they put down the new asphalt?
That's correct. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
And so the process itself, just so the committee can be maybe more educated, do you all like melt it back down and blend it, or how exactly is the asphalt recycled?
This is where I'll lean on my pavement professional to.
Well, I think.
Turn your mic on, please.
Oh, sorry. I think this could be answered in a little more detail by the industry, but essentially the millings are counted as an aggregate that also contributes asphalt to the mixture. So they are mixed back in, sometimes with an additive, and then put in with that virgin asphalt to put down with the mix on the road.
It offsets the need for additional aggregate, aggregate out of the quarry, as well as reduces the amount of asphalt needed for that mix.
Brief follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Is this a more cost-effective process by recycling this than just simply using new asphalt?
It can be more cost-effective because it helps to reuse aggregate and helps to reduce the amount of virgin asphalt that you have to put into the mixture. However, in practice, as the amount of RAP has increased in pavements, we've not necessarily realized an overall cost savings, but there are a lot of market factors that contribute to that as well.
And what's the biggest factor that keeps it from being a more cost-effective measure?
Over the last couple of years, there's simply material shortages and inflation that have factored into it in particular. And then throughout time, if you have oil shortages and things like, mostly material shortages will factor into it from time to time. There are market fluctuations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And thank you all. Hang around. There may be some more questions. We're going to now hear from some of the experts in the industry fields that deal with this on a daily basis. And if each of you all will come, looks like we got Ronald Sines and Brian Wood. And if there's anyone else with you all that wants to come to the table to testify, feel free to do so. And gentlemen, if you all will introduce yourself for the record, you may begin.
Okay, is that on? I'm Ron Sines with CRH Americas Materials. I am Ron Sines from CRH Americas Materials.
And my name is Brian Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the Plant Mix Asphalt Industry of Kentucky.
Okay, great. Chairman Blanton, Chairman Higdon, thank you very much for the opportunity, other members of the committee, to come here today and talk to you a little bit about reclaimed asphalt pavement. This morning we've heard it referred to as recycled asphalt pavement, reclaimed asphalt pavement, and to be quite honest with you, they're kind of one and the same, interchangeable terms. I tend to go back and forth myself. So just a little bit about who I am and where I come from. I'm currently the Vice President of Sustainability and Decarbonization for CRH. I've been there for 23 years. Prior to taking on this role, I was the Asphalt Performance Vice President overseeing the operations at our 400-plus asphalt plants that CRH operates across North America. Prior to joining CRH, I was employed by the New York State Department of Transportation, where I managed their asphalt materials program, and we oversaw everything from the approval of plants for production on state highway projects, as well as all the state specifications and policies and procedures that oversaw the program in New York. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to be involved in a number of national activities. For example, the Federal Highway Administration RAP Expert Task Group, been a member of a number of National Cooperative Highway Research Panel projects that were related to asphalt mixture research. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the National Asphalt Pavement Association, as well as the National Center for Asphalt Technology. And I've also participated in NAPA's Committee for Asphalt Research and Technology. A bit about CRH Americas Materials. We are the #1 building provider in North America. You can see our footprint in terms of all the locations that we do operate. We're the #1 producer and paver of asphalt in North America. We, on an annual basis, produce in the neighborhood of 53 million tons that's supplied to state agencies and private work across the country. We are the #1 recycler of materials and pavement materials in North America. We consume somewhere between 10 and 11 million tons of RAP every year in the production of those 53 million tons. We operate in 43 states and have just under 1,600 different operating locations. Here in Kentucky, CRH operates as the Hinkle Company or as Mountain Enterprises. Predominantly located in the eastern Kentucky area, we employ 700 people, and we have approximately 45 operating locations. So what is RAP, or reclaimed asphalt pavement? I think it's important that we take a step backward and let's talk first about what is an asphalt road. And it's really quite simple. I mean, it's a mixture of coarse aggregate rock and sand, about 95%. The other 5% is liquid asphalt cement. We take those materials and through an engineered process, blend them through our plant, heat them to a production temperature, haul them to the road, they're laid down, and then open for the traveling public. They are designed to carry the heavy loads from trucks and cars for many years. What we see in this photograph is a milling machine. And when a pavement reaches the end of its usable service life, we go out with a milling machine and we remove a thin layer of that asphalt pavement and haul it back to our production facilities. There, it may receive additional processing to break down some larger chunk materials. Other situations, maybe not. But we should always test it to ensure the gradation and the consistency of the material. And RAP is the most consistent material that you'll find at our plant, believe it or not. And we test it for aggregate gradation, the quality of the aggregate, the physical properties of the aggregate. We also look to determine what the quantity of asphalt cement is in that as well, and what the grade of that asphalt cement is. Once we have all those physical properties identified, we're able to then re-engineer that mix back into a blend of additional virgin material, put it back through our plant, take it back to the roadway, in some cases the same roadway that it came from, and place it down as another layer to extend that pavement life going forward. you may be wondering, we brought a little show and tell with us here today, what exactly these are. These are laboratory specimens that we would produce in the production of a mixed design. We have one with 16% wrap in it, one with 40% wrap in it. Both of these mixes meet the volumetric and performance test requirements that are currently in place here in Kentucky. The difference being I can use the 16% wrap on a state project. We're not able to use the 40% wrap, even though they meet the same performance requirements. So let's talk quickly about the benefits of using wrap. From a sustainability standpoint, across the U.S. in 2021, almost 95 million tons of wrap were used. So that's, roughly 90 million tons of aggregate, 5 million tons of asphalt that did not have to be produced. From a cost-saving standpoint, we need to start to think about wrap not as a waste product. It is a valuable natural resource. It is aggregate and asphalt that we don't have to mine and we don't have to refine. It's right there on the road for us to use again and again. From a performance standpoint, there are numerous studies that have been done across the U.S. that show that wrap containing up to 30% pavements. Let me stop. There is examples of asphalt mixtures containing up to 30% wrap and more that have been shown to perform just as well as the virgin mixes. This is a map showing what the current wrap utilization is in the neighboring states to Kentucky, and you can see we range from a low of 15.5 here in Kentucky to a high of 29.9 in neighboring Virginia. Each of these states shares similar climate, similar geology as what we have here in Kentucky, and we're seeing vastly different percentages of wrap that are being used. And I think we need to understand why that is and why the neighboring states are as successful using this material as they are. This is a chart we bring in states from across the country. There are only 38 states on this chart, and that's largely because that's the data that was reported by the Napa study that's referenced there. Kentucky at 15.5 falls in the lower third of the utilization that we see across the United States, and from a national average standpoint, it's 5% below what the national average for wrap utilization is. So what we hope to do today is really start a dialogue about how do we maximize the use of wrap in a responsible and effective manner to ensure quality and long-term pavement performance, because we don't want to put any mixes out there that aren't going to last as long as they're supposed to. And we also believe that the market really needs to determine where the wrap can be used. And ultimately, the goal of using wrap is to use it to its highest and best value. In some cases, we see wrap being used as shoulder material or as a base in parking lots and those types of things. Keep in mind, from a sustainability standpoint, once we do that, the value of that natural resource, that liquid asphalt, which is the most expensive part of these mixes, is lost to us forever. Thank you.
Can I jump in right here with a quick question while you're at this phase? Let's go back to your map on the surrounding states and the percentages so that everyone on the committee understands. When it says 15.5% for Kentucky, it's my understanding that means in Kentucky, of the asphalt mix currently, only a maximum amount of 15.5% of wrap can be used in a mixture. Is that accurate?
It's actually going to be slightly above that, because this includes all of the mixes. Some of the mixes used here in Kentucky currently preclude the use of any wrap.
Okay.
So when you include those mixes in, which we would hope to find a way to be able to use wrap in those as well, that's what brings this number down. I think the rough number, Brian, is roughly 16-17%.
Yeah. I would add, Mr. Chairman, this is not a specification limit. This is the actual utilization. So on average, of all the tons of asphalt produced in Kentucky, about 15% of that mix included it was wrap, whereas in other states it might be, you see the numbers 20+%. So that is not a specification number. That's the actual utilization by contractors throughout the state.
So in Kentucky, do we have a percentage max that can be used in a mixture?
We do. The specifications have a maximum. There are two different ways of looking at that. One is there's a percentage maximum, which is 20%, but there's also another maximum that is a calculated number based on binder replacement. It gets a little in the weeds on the engineering, and I apologize, but it probably caps out most contractors on their surface mixes at somewhere around 17, 18%. That depends on aggregates and absorption and an array of factors. But certainly 20% is a hard cap.
Okay. Do we know about these other states that's apparently using more RAP? Are they allowed to use more RAP percentage in a particular mixture above that 20%, or are they just simply using it more often and that's what's driving their percentages higher?
Well, certainly they're allowed to use more than 20% because they're averaging more than 20%. And we have looked at some of the adjacent states, and Ron, you may have some comments because of your operations, but their specification limits, for the most part, are higher. Maybe not in every state, but they are a little bit higher.
Yeah, typically what we would see are specifications that are slightly higher than what Brian has described. Additionally, some of the differences that you'll see in various states are where the RAP is being used in the base mixer or the binder, which is really the layer that's sort of between the base and the top. Those states generally have higher specification, higher upper limits on the amount of RAP that you can use in those underlying layers, which helps drive these numbers up also.
Okay, thank you. I do have some more questions, but I'll let you all finish with your presentation.
Yeah. Do you mind holding me up there? Yep, I'll get you. Mr. Chairman, Chairman Blanton and Higdon, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here. We're going to pull my slides up there. It's that top left. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And again, my name is Brian Wood. I'm Executive Director of the Plant Mix Asphalt Industry of Kentucky. We're the trade association that represents the asphalt paving contractors throughout the state. Let me start by telling you a little bit about the organization. We have 24 producer members. Those are contracting companies that own asphalt plants and that produce asphalt mixture around the state. In addition, we have 62 associate members who support the industry through providing materials, consulting services, and equipment. Obviously, Mountain Enterprises and Hinkle are two of those 24 producer members that I mentioned. Ron showed you the footprint of CRH both nationally and in the state of Kentucky. This is a map showing physical asphalt plant locations for all of our 24 producer members, and you can see that we have membership that crosses the entire state. So those orange dots there represent physical asphalt plant locations throughout the Commonwealth. The logos you see here on the left side of the page hopefully are somewhat familiar to you in your local districts. You may recognize these companies as local employers, and many of these people live in your districts, obviously. When you collectively look at the 24 paving contractor members, we estimate that they employ about 5,000 people. They pay about $400 million in payroll and taxes, and that the economic contribution to the Commonwealth in Kentucky is on the order of $5 billion. A little about me: I have the pleasure of serving as the executive director of the association. Like Ron, I've been in this role for 23 years. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Kentucky, and I'll provide two slides in just a minute about a scanning tour that we did to the country of Japan to learn more about how they conduct their high RAP mixes, and I'll explain those in just one second. And I often work as a liaison between the contractors and the transportation cabinet, between folks like John and Tracy who were at the table earlier, talking about issues and specifications related to asphalt pavements. As you heard from Ron, there is definitely industry support for the increased use of reclaimed asphalt pavement. We believe it's a proven and accepted practice. It's something that we can do more of in the future. So let me just step back just for two quick slides. Step back to 2014. This was a tour that we did along with the National Asphalt Pavement Association. I'm sitting front right in this picture. My colleague here at the table, Ron Sines, is in the back row, standing on the left near the gentleman in the orange sweater. We went to the country of Japan to better understand how they utilize their recycled products. And what we learned is that Japan uses on average 45%. And actually, that's Ron in the holding a shovel in his hand, and we're looking at mixtures that they put on the ground for us to look at that had 60 and sometimes 70% recycled content to them. And I say that, you may say, well, why are you talking about Japan? We're in Kentucky, we're not there, and there are obviously tremendous differences. But I say that to put in perspective that the U.S. average of 20% is considerably less than Japan and even some of the European countries, and then our average in the state of Kentucky is even below that at roughly 15 or 16%. So we're using a very modest amount of RAP. It is certainly possible to go higher. So I'm back here to the state of Kentucky. The contractors in the state of Kentucky are not unfamiliar with recycled pavements at all. They've been using reclaimed asphalt pavement for decades. Generally speaking, they've been using those in small or moderate percentages. So again, smaller amounts, but they have been using them. I believe nearly 80% of all the mixes in the state of Kentucky include some amount of recycled asphalt pavement. I chose the picture on the right intentionally so that you would understand this is what I think the perception is when you're talking about a recycled product. It's some broken up, old, worn out piece of pavement. But what I want to maybe put in your brain is a different perspective, which is the pictures that you see here on the right. When we follow best practices for including RAP in our asphalt mixtures, we're going to take that material off the milling machine. We're going to truck it back to the asphalt plant, as was discussed earlier. It will be crushed, processed, separated into different size piles, screened, tested as Ron had mentioned. And so what you end up with is an engineered product, something that you can meter back in with high degree of confidence in its performance. And we're basically re-engineering this mix, and we're reusing the aggregates, and we're reusing the asphalt in the new mixture. There have been a number of technology advancements along the way in recent decades. There's more access to milling, better milling equipment. There are improved plant technologies. The plant technology does play a factor in this. The ability to incorporate higher amounts of RAP comes with plant technology. We have improved our processing and ability to fractionate that material at the plant site. But I think the most important piece of the puzzle is, for the last 2 decades, the industry and the agency both have been waiting on our federal partners to implement some sort of performance test. And just in recent years, Kentucky has implemented a performance test for asphalt mixtures. It's called the Ideal CT. We've been running these tests now for about 4 years, and they're starting to be introduced into the specifications. The big benefit of a performance test to both the agency and the contractor is the ability to innovate, the ability to try different materials, to try different blends, to do things in the laboratory, test them out, and have reasonable assurance that if they do well in these laboratory performance tests, they will perform well in the field. And so this is a new development and something that I think positions us for the opportunity to increase our RAP percentages moving forward. I will mention that for those that represent rural areas, there's certainly a big difference between urban contractors and rural contractors in terms of them balancing their ability to use recycled products. In the urban areas, we have a lot of curb and gutter, meaning there's curb and gutter for drainage along the sides of the roadways. Those roadways typically have to be milled because you can't overlay them and mess up the drainage by paving into the gutter. In rural areas, we have much less curb and gutter. There's the opportunity to just put an overlay on top. So in rural areas, you just don't have as much milling. Those contractors don't have nearly the access to it as you would in the urban areas. So contractors are always trying to find that balance between how much material they're taking in and how much material they're pushing back out. In the urban areas, what we're finding is contractors are taking in a lot more than they're able to use. They're starting to, their plant sites are becoming crowded. They have a surplus of material. And so they're looking for opportunities to use more. The dynamics in the rural areas are obviously different. They have different needs, they have different wants. They may want to use more material, for instance, in the base. They may want to use more material in a thin lay, which they can't use now, or maybe a stone matrix asphalt mix. So there are specialty mixes where they may want to use more RAP. So I just want to mention that there is a difference. There's not a one-size-fits-all that works in this situation because there simply is not the access to a lot of material in some of the rural parts of the state. There have been significant enhancements in asphalt mixtures over the last few years, and the cabinet, along with industry, have partnered together looking at research from the National Center for Asphalt Technology. and that led to some significant specification changes in 2019. I do believe that will go a long way towards addressing some of the performance issues that were mentioned earlier. We lowered gyration, we lowered design air voids, we increased our asphalt content, and that may mean nothing to all of you, and I understand that those things are not terms that you're familiar with, but what that really means for the pavement is improved flexibility, improved crack resistance, and improved durability. So the Highway Department and industry are working together to transition from more recipe specifications, more prescriptive specifications, to more performance-based specifications. So why is that important? I really feel like that moves us forward into what I almost consider a new era. These performance specifications just represent a huge shift in our industry. It allows contractors to be innovative and allows them to efficiently use their materials and find out what they can do as far as stretching the limits on recycled asphalt pavement. The agency, and the beauty is the agency and taxpayers have a performance test that ensures quality, performance, and durability of the pavement. So just moving forward, the path forward, as John Moore already mentioned, our association, the cabinet, are already engaged in some dialogue on this topic. We formed the Asphalt Pavement Collaboration Committee. That committee identified specific issues that were of importance, and one of those was recycling and sustainability. And so we have a task force on that issue that's been meeting over the past year. And I really believe moving forward, we have an opportunity to expand the use of our recycled asphalt pavements by utilizing these performance tests and best practices to control the mix and improve pavement durability. So with that, I thank you, and we would be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. A couple quick questions. RAP, cost saving in some circumstance, some situations, as Brian pointed out, it's not a one size fits all. Cost saving in the production? Yes, no?
Cost saving is going to be largely dependent on the particular markets that we're talking about. I will tell you across CRH, we generally see a cost reduction when we utilize RAP, both in our raw materials as well as, well, maybe a little bit in our production costs as well, but predominantly in the raw materials. As the percentage of recycle increases, the amount of our costs generally do go down. To try and quantify what that is for you would be very difficult because it changes depending on exactly where you are. I would make reference to a report that was done by the South Carolina DOT, published back in December of 2014, if I recall correctly. We can make that available to you. And they've gone through a very meticulous process of looking at wide variety of the standard mixes that they do, and they have quantified, at least for the conditions in South Carolina, what their cost savings are. And I would suggest that would be a good place to start to get a sense as to what you would likely see moving forward.
Okay, very good. We do have some members that have some questions. Chairman Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, the urban versus rural on the milling, I would say it's important in the rural areas too, because I've seen shoulders on roads that there's a foot drop. The pavement's been that thick year after year, or 15 years after 15 years after 15 years, just a constant buildup. So I could see where even those rural roads could be milled when they're paved also, because now the cabinet is required, I think the cabinet required the contractors to taper those surfaces there's a huge drop off, and they taper it off. But there's some places they can't do that. It's just there's a drop off. You get off the shoulder of the road, if you overcorrect, you're finished.
Yes, you're correct. There is a device that goes on the edge of the paver that is intended to provide that taper. But there are certainly places where there are drop-offs, and some of those are challenging because it just goes straight into the ditch. There's really very little room there. So those are all project-specific conditions that are evaluated by the department and put into a proposal for the contractor to build.
Like I said, I guess my point is sometimes it's appropriate, even in rural areas, to mill.
Sure, and I believe Ron, you mentioned that there are some states that actually are intentional in milling in rural areas to create RAP in places that don't have as much. So It can be planned and be intentional in that regard, but it is certainly, I mean, milling adds a little additional cost. So when you don't have to mill, you can just pave on top of it. So yeah, those are all decisions that are on a project by project basis.
Okay. Yeah, and if I could add, there are situations certainly where milling is going to improve the overall performance of the pavement because we're removing that highly distressed material rather than paving over top of it. So your point is well taken that in some locations we should always consider milling the road.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Upchurch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess in the perfect world, what would you recommend that Kentucky increases their RAP percentage to?
Well, again, it's a difficult question to answer. And there's some things that you need to consider. Brian talked about improvements in plant technology and the ability just to use higher percentages of RAP. The availability of RAP needs to be considered. Across the country, though, what we're seeing are specifications that are in the 40 and 50% range in a number of states. Here in Kentucky, my personal recommendation would be to really target 30% as a reasonable interim goal. And the beauty of what we're talking about is with the adoption of this cracking test that Brian mentioned, it really is going to be instructive for the cabinet using that data to understand how far they can potentially take this. So I think you can get to 30% without too much trouble. Obviously, to get there, there's some leading practices that are going to have to be implemented at the plant. The producers are going to have to work a little bit harder in controlling the consistency and the quality of the materials that we have. But if you get there, then you can start to use this cracking test really to see how far can you go.
And I'll just add on, if I could, that obviously in the rural areas we would really struggle to get to that point because of availability. But we do have contractors today in some of the urban areas who are producing at 35, 40, 45% on private projects, not KYTC or DOT related projects, but they're doing that pretty routinely. So we are gaining more experience, a better understanding of mixed performance, even in that 30 to 40 plus percent range.
So if we had, starting next year, a requirement that up to 40% be available for you all to use, then would that allow you all to be nimble enough to incrementally get up to a higher percentage?
Again, I think some of the urban contractors could certainly go higher than where they are now. There is just a spot where in the rural communities where they would never get there. So
not requiring that 40% be used.
You're saying more of a maximum.
If it's available, then it could be used up to 40%. Maybe starting out with 30% and seeing how that goes, and then increment it up.
Certainly, there are contractors who could move up to that that type of. And again, they are doing it today in commercial and private work.
I guess it would be a fair assessment that you would say that the science is there.
We certainly believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Heverin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions, if you will indulge me. Thank you. First off, the utilization map of RAP, it kind of reminded me of the gas tax, how everyone around us has higher percentages. Just a quick note about that one. My first question is, how many other states are doing this? So, like, how many other states have higher percentages of RAP than we do?
The chart that I showed that listed the 38 states, I believe Kentucky was 6th from the bottom in terms of its utilization. Where the other 12 states fall, it's difficult to tell because NAPA doesn't publish information that unless they have a certain quantity of it. So clearly Kentucky's in the bottom third.
So hopefully we can increase that. Thank you for that. My next question is specifically for Brian. Is this something that the industry is on board with increasing the percentages of RAP?
Yes, absolutely. Again, the needs and the issues are different in different areas. So the urban contractors would like the opportunity to use more. The rural contractors, may have a large project where they have a surplus of material and would like to use more for some period of time. I know I've received calls from members who would like to do more in some of the specialty mixes where we're not allowed to use wrap. So there's definitely an interest in across the board. And again, the circumstances will be much different in different parts of the state, but I think the overarching comment is yes, there is definitely interest in moving that number forward.
Thank you.
Representative Hodgson.
Yes, from an engineering standpoint, is there a limit to how many times you can remelt liquid asphalt before it starts to lose some of its adhesive properties?
Generally speaking, we haven't found where that limit is, if it does exist at this point. Certainly the use of wrap really became something prevalent within the industry back in the 70s, but to be frank, it really took off more in the early 2000s. So we're really just getting to that point now where we're recycling material that's been through the facility once before. But again, keep in mind, when that material comes in, one of the things that we should always do is have an understanding of the quality of that liquid asphalt that's on those aggregate particles that we want to reuse, so that we can select the appropriate virgin binder and any additional additives that we may need to put back into the mix to ensure that we're going to get the performance that we're looking for.
Director, I see you with your hand up. I was going to call you up anyways because I got a couple questions for you as well, but go ahead with your comments.
Just wanted to call attention to a couple things. One is our spec does allow for 20% in surfaces, but it also allows for up to 30% wrap in our base mixes. So that's so that is available to the industry now. It does require some other things to help offset the brittleness of recycled asphalt. So, but that we do have an allowance of 30% in our bases now and 20% in our surfaces. Additionally, that 15%, a lot of the northern states are more urban states, and so they have more natural millings than Kentucky would. And as Brian and Mr. Sines mentioned, that there's areas of the state that are wrap starved, and when we're talking about cost, we want to think about life cycle cost as well. That we want to move responsibly, and I think we're in a position now with the industry and ourselves that we are able to move comfortably forward. But if we step incorrectly, every year performance of our pavement that we lose is $60 million in treatment costs that we don't recover. So that's to get to your point of how much the cost of how many miles of pavements we do. That's $60 million worth of pavement that we can't get to for the next cycle. So apologize, I didn't mean to impose, but wanted to get those out there.
No, I was going to give you a chance to come anyways. And I do have a couple questions, but I'm going to let Representative Hodgson has another question.
Yes, you just said something about the inherent brittleness of recycled asphalt. That seems to contradict what the other gentleman said about there's no limit to how many times you can, no found limit to how many times you can reheat, remelt.
It is a well-known factor, and I think both gentlemen to my right would testify to this as well, that recycled wrap, the reason you mix it with virgin material, you rarely use 100% recycled asphalt because it is prone to cracking. That's a well-known phenomenon. And so mixing it with the right proportions of virgin asphalt, as well as rejuvenators or other items to ensure that it is not prone to cracking, which is why Brian mentioned the cracking test, is an avenue that we can pursue to ensure that it has the appropriate performance.
So does that tendency towards brittleness get worse the more times you recycle it?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could, don't think of it in terms of brittleness. Certainly, a wrap product is stiffer than it would have been when it was virgin material. But again, that's why we analyze the asphalt on there, so that we select the correct grade of virgin binder to put in, so that we're offsetting that additional stiffness that liquid may have with an appropriate binder to get to a grade or a type of asphalt that we would have as if it were brand new. And when you have higher percentages of these materials, you may need to include some what we refer to as rejuvenators. A lot of these are biotype products that are relatively new, very promising performance to date, to really help us get back into a position of and I'm going to use air quotes on this, an as new type of liquid in that mix, even though some of it is fairly old. And keep in mind, the asphalt itself is millions of years old. So,
all right, Director, I do have a question. It's my understanding there is some types of asphalt under the I guess the guidelines set by the Transportation Cabinet that cannot use any wrap at all. Is that correct?
That would be our number 4 mixes, I believe. That's our thin lays. And if we go too deep down this hole, I'm going to have to tag out.
I'm just wondering if this is working, what those types are that we can't use them at all. That's why I asked that question.
Well, we're just now at the point that we're looking at the possibility of expanding the use of wrap in our pavements. That's not something we'd be opposed to looking at, but that's something that we've been. It is our highest performing pavement, and we have noted some concerns since back in 2016 of the performance associated with our wrap contents. Now, there's been a lot of progress made in that area over the past 7 or 8 years. So it is an opportunity for us to take a look at it again and look at it in mass. But we've just now gotten to the point that it's appropriate to relook at that, and we are looking at that with the industry and looking at opportunities.
Very good. Gentlemen, I thank all of y'all for your presentation. I do have some requests before we leave today. This is about good governance. This is about providing good roadways for the people that travel them at the most, in the most cost-effective manner that we can. And so here's my ask of you all. Work together. I mean, work together as partners, not adversaries. Work together to come to a solution how we can utilize as much wrap as possible, because it's going to be cost saving, it's going to work for us. What I'd like to see in 2024, I don't want something that's going to take 10 years to come up with a solution. What I want to see in 2024 is in Kentucky that we're using at least an average of what these states we've been shown today is using, with the goal of moving towards 40% if possible. Keep in mind, I'm giving some latitude there. If possible, let's push this to the max to where we benefit people, and that we can use as much of this wrap on our roadways as possible, because I believe that technologies are improving every day. I know we hear about 2016 a lot today, but this is 2023. There's a lot of new technologies out there. Let's use everything that we have at our disposal. And I know, because on some things I can be resistant to change. People don't like it, but let's work together. Let's come up with something that's going to work to better our roadways in a more cost-efficient manner, so that we can provide more coverage across the Commonwealth. So that's my ask of you all. 2024, when we come out, I would love to see at minimum the average of these that we've seen together. I don't want Kentucky to be at the bottom of the list anymore. I want us to be moving up and moving towards, as Chairman Upchurch said, the 40%. And if we get up as you climb, if it gets to a point where, okay, this isn't going to work, this is our stopping point, then we'll stop. But let's push this thing to do the best we can for the people of the Commonwealth. All right? Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Next, and up on our agenda is the last topic, portable electric vehicle chargers. And we have Mr. Rick Cook here with us today. Mr. Cook, if you introduce yourself for the members of the committee, and you may begin. Please turn your mic on, sir. Push the button down there on the base.
How's that?
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity. Today,
Mr. Cook, if you could try to get through your presentation in about 5 or 10 minutes. We have another meeting getting ready to meet in this room here shortly.
Okay. Trying to get to the site here. Here we go. I got you. All right. And this. I'm sorry.
Go to slideshow, use your mouse.
All right. Mr. Chairman, what I have today is I have a portable charging unit. It's a unit that is sitting in the back of a pickup truck, basically. It's a safety measure that me and another gentleman have come up with. And we're currently in business selling these chargers, but we're also doing roadside service for the EV charging industry with the people that have electric vehicles that get stranded. Many people push the envelope with what they're doing, and they have they get stranded on the side of the road. They run out of gas, they run their trucks out of diesel fuel, and people are pushing the envelope with these electric vehicles. We found with Hertz Rental Car, who we have a contract with right now nationwide to service their vehicles at their electric charging stations because of the power grid. What we're finding is with the infrastructure of the states and so forth with build out, they're running into problems with these EVs. They're also running into damage units that are setting, like the Tesla stations, the permanent stations that are in place that the state would put at a rest area or something. What's happening is they're damaging these units. The units that we have, they will not damage the batteries. A lot of times what's happening is we've got people chasing our product right now trying to duplicate it, and they're damaging car batteries. There was an instance where a lady spent about $20,000 from a system called Brink that is carbon copying what we're doing. The software in our portable units, what they do is they protect the battery. We have a 48 amp charging system. We can charge up to 48 amp fast charge, and we can fully charge a car in less than 45 minutes if they want a full charge. The adapters on these units and stuff, most general cars, I hold in my hand one of the adapters that we have. Most car chargers are 5-prong charge, like General Motors, Buick, some of those. Tesla has upgraded their charging system because they have bigger prongs on theirs to a 3-prong system, to where when we're charging those cars, they take a faster charge than most General Motors cars do, and so forth. You know, with the EV structure that's coming forth and everything, what we're finding, and this is going back to your previous conversation with the last presentation with asphalt milling on the side of the road and high drop-offs on the side of the road, what we're finding is batteries are getting damaged when there's a large drop-off on the bottom of a car, because all that battery is underneath the car. Is what's happening with some of these cars when people have to pull off to the roadside. It's causing a lot of fires, and if you notice in one of my previous pictures here, we have fire extinguishers on our vehicles. Right now, I've got 2 chargers. One's in Dallas, Texas. One's in Fort Worth, And then I've got multiple chargers that have been sold out in California because of the build out that they're doing out there. But we are seeing a lot of power grid strain with what's happening with all this. If you'll notice on the truck here, we've got the portable charger in the back of a pickup truck that can immediately charge a car, much like a wrecker would go and tow an electric vehicle. What we're finding is the wreckers are experiencing fires with these dead cars. General Motors has a very bad problem with their car right now, and Tesla is starting to experience some problems too with what they have. But we keep the fire extinguishers on our vehicles because if we do come up on somebody, whether we're helping them or whether we're just traveling down the road, we have the capability to try to, extinguish that fire for those people and help EMS with, what we're doing. Basically, this is a concept that has never been done. I'm a layman. I'm a gentleman who come from modest means, and I tripped across this with a friend of mine. We come up with the idea. We've got a couple of young gentlemen that have helped us with the software in the Emporia head that we're using. We've changed the software so it will not damage the cars whatsoever when it comes to charging an EV and costing someone a $20,000 fee to replace batteries. It's also something that the insurance companies like State Farm and some of those who partner with Kentucky or what have you with roadside assistance has the capability of having one of these generators in the back of their cars in the suburban areas, and then the state has the opportunity to possibly assist people out in the rural community with these chargers on the back of a vehicle. AAA has not quite worked its way out into the rural community very well. And there's a lot of tow services and stuff out there that are just overwhelmed with trying to tow these vehicles. They refuse because of the electrical fires. We're trying to eliminate the electrical fires with these portable charging units and offer this as an opportunity for the states, which we have local and state government rates for the units to be bought, but we're also trying to franchise this into the automotive industry with helping the road service people.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Very needful product, I would say. I could see where our safe patrols out across the state could benefit from these, especially on our parkways and interstates.
We have some cards in the hands of state police right now up and down the I-65 corridor, which is a highly traveled area from basically Indianapolis, Chicago, the technology industry, people going south that we've already assisted a couple of stranded motorists through that contact.
Yeah. Well, our transportation cabinet has a unit called Safe Patrol. It's no longer exists, Director. Oh, I'm out of date. We used to have one called Safe Patrol, and they patrolled just to help broken down motors. Maybe we needed to look at putting them out there somewhere, but Senator Turner has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell the committee, appreciate your explanation and your presentation, but is that machine you've got set in the back of that truck run off of gasoline, or is it battery operated itself?
No, sir. It's I'm a gas and a diesel guy.
You starting a gasoline engine to charge an electric battery car?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook actually contacted me a couple of months ago and asked. We've had a friendship over a few years, but he's a gentleman that contacted me and asked about if he could come and testify on this issue, and I had never really thought about this, whether we're pro electric vehicles or we were anti-electric vehicles. I think we all realize it's something that's definitely coming, and the industry is increasing every day. And when he brought this to my attention, I thought that was really a good idea to have a portable units that could meet people when their batteries were damaged or down or whatever. The question I have, Mr. Cook, is if your company or whomever is called to one of these individuals or whomever you're charging this for, do you have liability insurance in case of damage to that vehicle, something that might occur with your charging? What do you have to cover that individual's?
This is a standard charging unit that has the software. It's the same as a home charging unit that you'd have in your home to charge an automobile. We carry garage insurance, what is called garage insurance, on our trucks. I have 2 trucks in operation right now. The garage insurance is basically the same as what a tow company has to incorporate into their business to protect themselves and protect the client that they're either servicing the vehicle, whether it be gasoline, diesel, or electric. The policy I wrote or had written through my insurer, they had to do some research to find this to help us, because it's a new concept. It's something that's new coming. The electric vehicle, Tennessee has contacted me. They're very active in trying to build out their EV structure, and me being a Kentucky native and friends with you, I felt it, a great thing for the state of Kentucky to have, because common sense isn't something that grows in everybody's garden when it comes to charging a car, or whether it comes to changing oil. These people are damaging these prongs on these General Motors cars, these Teslas. Tesla's less so than like General Motors or Buick. The unit that we have currently will charge the Volvo Semi that they're coming out with now. They have a Volvo Semi, and the head that we have on that charging unit will charge the Volvo Semi as well.
If I could just ask one more question real quick, Mr. Chair.
Quickly.
Okay. Compared to the time of one of the permanent charging systems, does yours charge that as quickly?
I have a fast charge system on mine, which carries up to 48 amps. Low amp side would be 30 amps. We try to get a motorist at least a 30-mile charge for a service call out to help them get to a stationary station, where we find ourselves sometimes going to those stations because of the damage to the heads on a stationary unit, because they can't get the charge there. We have to go to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We're going to do one more question real quickly, because we do have to clear the room for the next committee meeting. Senator Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir. This is just an amazing concept. I really, really appreciate you bringing it to us. My question is, in your operations currently, how do you charge? How do you bill?
We bill just like any service call would be for a record company. We're at ground zero, basically trying to establish rates. We're $159 is what it is to call out to do a charge on a vehicle for getting a 30-mile range to the stationary place where they're safe off the road. People are, when you have emergency vehicles and stuff like that are trying to make their way through the emergency lanes and you've got backed up traffic, these EVs are just a fire hazard sitting there. So we're trying to get them off the road, and this is what the purpose of our concept is to help the communities.
All right, thank you. Extremely impressed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cook. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance today and your attention. Also like to take this opportunity to thank the members for their time and the attention throughout this interim, as this is our last meeting for this 2023 interim. Especially want to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to all the staff at LRC on this committee for all their hard work. They are a great group of people, and I really appreciate them. If you all join me in giving them a round of applause.